Hey everybody, I know it's been a long time, so I'm going to try this new format of reviewing. Hopefully it'll be better. I feel it'll make it easier for you guys to make a better choice, which movie you should watch and which movie you should avoid, which show you should watch. So I'm going to take a shot, and I'm going to try it first with this TV show, Woman of 9.9 Billion. Okay, so if you don't know about this TV show, it stars Kim Kang Woo, who's a big South Korean TV star, as Woo. Okay, he's playing Woo, and Chung as Jung Seo Yeon. Okay, the show is basically 32 half-hour episodes, and this is supposed to be like a mystery thriller drama. Okay, now I'm going to tell you right now off the bat, I personally really like this show, and I'm going to tell you 9 reasons why you should watch this show. Starting with number 9. The show takes risks that other South Korean shows don't take. Okay, this show addresses topics and things that I feel I've never seen addressed in other South Korean movies or TV shows. Okay, it deals with the subject of infidelity in a way that I've never seen it dealt with. It deals with the subject of greed in a way I've never seen it dealt with. And it also deals with the subject of domestic violence, which I've never seen any South Korean movie or TV show deal with domestic violence between a spouse and a husband in the way this show does. So I really like shows that take risks, and I feel like this show takes risks that other shows don't take, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's worth watching. Number 8, the acting is top notch. The acting is, I can't think of one person in the show who I didn't feel brought everybody down as far as the acting. The acting is top notch, really great acting from everybody, especially I'd have to say 2 particular actors that really stood out to me in the show is a woman named Oh Na-ra, who plays Yoon Hee-ju. I'm sorry, I know I'm always butchering these South Korean names. I'm so sorry. And this other guy, his name is Yang Hyun-min, and he plays one of the villains. He kind of looks like Vegeta, from Dragon Ball Z, but he plays a really, really good villain. And his acting and the acting of all the actors is amazing in the show. So that's another reason why I definitely think you should watch the show. Number 7, the plot twists in this show, phenomenal. And when I say phenomenal, I'm not trying to be exaggerative of the show. That's one of the things that worked so well in the show is they gave plot twists that not only they earned, but it made sense. So I'm going to tell you something right now about myself. I write screenplays. I produce movies. Okay, so I know when a plot twist is forced, and I know when it's genuine and good, and I know when it's garbage. They introduced plot twists in this show that I feel made sense to the story. I can't say that about other movies and TV shows I've watched lately. Okay. So the plot twists in this show are genuinely surprising, and they earned it. Number 6, the characters are great. The characters are well-written characters. The show has a whole gallery of well-written characters that are memorable. There's a lot of characters in the show that are memorable that I loved and I enjoyed. Now, not all of them, but most of them. So I found myself many times liking most of the good guys and liking most of the bad guys in the shows. I liked most of the characters in the show. Okay, they were all interesting. They all had things about them that made them interesting and 3-dimensional. And they were likable and relatable characters. And I feel like that's something that I don't always see, not just in certain South Korean movies and TV shows, but just in general. Maybe you have some characters that are strong, but then you have other characters that are weak, and it just kind of gets frustrating. And you see a particular character, and you're like, man, I can't wait for that person to get off screen. But in this show, most of the characters, you enjoyed watching them on screen. Number 5. The 5th reason why you should give $9.9 billion Woman a try is that the show kept its momentum for most of the show. The show keeps its momentum. And, the show did a good job of keeping my attention and its interest. There are certain, I've come to the point where I can watch a movie or a TV show and I can detect when it's going to be boring, the story's going to like start slowing down. This show is very different. And I honestly, like in all the South Korean shows I've seen, this is one of the shows where I can honestly say for probably 95% of the episodes, the momentum kept increasing and it kept going. Like the storytelling keeps going. And I think that's something I haven't seen in a South Korean show in a while. And this is one of the things that I liked. I loved about it a lot. Now, some of you are like, but you said 95%. Why didn't you say 100%? Just wait. When I do my 5 gripes with the show, you'll understand why. Okay, number 4. The characters did what was consistent with their character. This is one of my biggest gripes as someone who I've been to film school. I used to work at a movie theater. I know how it is to write a movie and to produce a movie. I've produced movies myself. One of my biggest gripes with movies nowadays is when I see someone in a movie do something that isn't consistent with their character. Okay, so for example, if you were watching The Dark Knight and the Joker, you know what kind of character he is, but instead of killing people, he's saving people's lives. That would be inconsistent with his character. It doesn't make sense, okay? You expect him to be consistent throughout the whole movie and make choices and make actions that make sense to his character. This particular show, for most of the show, once again, 95% of the show, they made choices and they did actions that was consistent with their character. And that was one of the things that I really liked about the show. That's something that I look for in movies. I look for in TV shows are characters that make choices and decisions that are consistent with their character. That's what keeps you invested. The characters did what was consistent. Number 3, third reason you should give $9.9 billion woman a chance. The mystery of the show is compelling. Okay? This show does a great job of revealing things at a good pace and keeping you invested. It does a great job of causing you to be so invested that you're trying to figure out and solve the mystery. I love movies and shows that do this, where it's not a show that you could easily turn off because it bothers you to try to figure out the answer to the mystery, like who killed so-and-so or where is such and such. And this show does a great job of telling the story so well that you really can't stop watching until you figure out what happened. You know, this is a show that really, if I watched 4 episodes of this show and I couldn't finish it, I would be frustrated. That's how well written it was as far as the mystery in the show. And so that's one of the reasons why I think this show is definitely worth a watch. Number two, I love the exploration of how different people react to money. And this goes back to when I say this show took a little bit of more risks than other shows. Most of the times when I look at different South Korean movies and TV shows, typically the poor people are portrayed as righteous and the rich people are portrayed as wicked. Okay? This show does something a little bit different. It shows you that whether you're rich or poor, you're all susceptible to greed, you know? And so I loved how it explored that, and it shows you how different people react to money. There's an old saying, it says that money only makes you more of what you already are, okay? So if you're a stingy person who's poor, you'll be a stingy person even if you get rich. If you're a generous person, if you're poor, you'll be generous even if you're rich, okay? It only just makes you more of what you already are. And this show does an excellent job of exploring that and showing how money and greed affect different people. The number one reason why you should give $9.9 billion woman a chance is the villains. Oh my goodness. I'm kind of, a little ashamed to say this, but this is one of the best parts of the show. I loved the villains in this show. Like, sometimes you watch a show and they'll have a villain and they're just kind of like, they just irritate you every time you see them. They're just really, really poorly written villains. This is one of those shows where you watch the villains and it's just like, wow, they're very well written. And you want to see more of them. They're 3-dimensional, and one of the things, and I think there were 2 things that caused me to love the villains so much in this show. Number 1, it was the acting. Okay. the actors. So, for example, Yang Hyun Min as Kim Do Hak, or Vegeta, as I like to call him from Dragon Ball Z, because he looked like Vegeta. He's one of my favorite villains in the show. Kim Do Hyun as Seo Min Gyu, and Jung Song Il as Baek Sung Jae. You know, the great actors who brought their A game and who made three-dimensional villains, you know, that were really great. I really enjoyed how these guys were written. Even one of the bad guys that I hated when the show first started, this particular bad guy who was played by Jung Woong In. I really hated the character he played, but later on as the show went, and by the time you got to the end of the show, he became a character, even though he was evil, who you felt sympathy for. You felt sympathy for him because the way that they showed his character and the way he was played. So definitely give 9.9 billion a chance. It's a really well written show. I do have some gripes with it, and I will tell you about what problems I had with it in my next video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Peace.